Soweto, a vibrant and dynamic township, has undergone a remarkable transformation over the decades. With a population exceeding 2 million, it stands as South Africa's largest township and a cornerstone of the nation's cultural, political, and entrepreneurial landscape. Birthplace of icons, politicians, entertainers, academics, and writers who have shaped not only South Africa, but the world. Located southwest of Johannesburg, Soweto, short for Southwestern Township, was a name formally adopted in 1963 by the Johannesburg City Council, following a naming competition. From its humble beginnings, Soweto have continuously fought to build something from nothing. But beneath the surface lies a past defined by apartheid's harsh legacy, social inequality, and economic disparity. Despite these challenges, the people here continue to carve a path forward and redefine what it means to be Sowetan. In this documentary, we journey through the extraordinary history of Soweto, exploring its profound impact on South African culture and its enduring legacy today. But to truly understand its dynamic culture, we must journey back to where it all began, through the heart and soul of the community and into the stories that have shaped this extraordinary place. In the early 20th century, Johannesburg was rapidly industrializing, and with that growth came a need for cheap labor. Thousands of South Africans had already begun migrating to the city, particularly from rural areas, seeking work in the mining and industrial sectors. Due to the Natives Land Act of 1913, South Africans were prohibited from owning land in most of the country, and as a result, they were forced to live in restricted areas designated for non-white populations near mines and factories. These compounds were often poorly constructed and overcrowded, and workers would typically only return to their rural homes after working for extended periods in the cities. As more South Africans moved to the city, more overcrowded and informal settlements would emerge, creating problems for urban administration. Despite the challenging and discriminatory environment of the time, they began to establish communities. Since the country's economy relied heavily on black labor, the government and white employers were concerned about managing this labor force, especially as South Africans sought better wages and living conditions in urban areas. And in 1923, the South African government implemented the Native Urban Areas Act of 1923, which was a means to control where and how black people lived and worked, ensuring that they remained available for low-wage labor, but under strict supervision. It was also a part of the broader system of racial segregation that eventually became institutionalized through apartheid. The act sought to enforce racial separation by limiting the number of non-white people allowed to live in cities, and by regulating their residency to specific areas known as townships. This allowed the government to control the urban environment and prevent South Africans from establishing permanent settlements in cities, which was viewed as a challenge to white dominance. The government feared that a large black urban population could lead to political unrest and demands for equality. The Native Urban Areas Act of 1923, which lasted till 1945, was first carried out by the United Party under Prime Minister Jan Smuts, then later, the National Party under Prime Minister J.B.M. Hertzog. The act included a provision that required the government to provide alternative housing for non-whites before they were relocated from urban areas. This was meant to ensure that people weren't displaced without a place to live. However, this provision became problematic in practice. The list of people waiting for housing kept growing, and the housing backlog in urban areas reached over 40,000 homes. In 1925, a group of slum landlords and African tenants successfully challenged the government's relocation policies in the Supreme Court. And as a result of this legal challenge, the government amended the clause in the Native Urban Areas Act, removing the requirement that the government had to provide alternative housing before relocation. This legal and administrative shift meant that the government no longer had to be accountable for providing housing before relocation. Even though the act did not mandate the construction of townships, the government saw a way of managing this migration by providing organized housing in line with their vision of controlling black urbanization. And in 1931, Orlando was established. It was named after Edwin Orlando League, a former mayor of Johannesburg who served from 1925 to 1926. Orlando was a government-planned area to provide just enough infrastructure to sustain the population without offering opportunities for economic or social mobility, and was meant to house workers who were needed to sustain the growing industrial economy, yet carefully isolated from white residential areas. In its early stages of development, Orlando was marked by a vision of order and control, rather than community building. The streets were still raw, the homes simple and often poorly constructed, and basic infrastructure like running water and electricity was scarce. The government maintained control using police forces and local authorities who were monitoring, suppressing and punishing those who defied the government's policies. By 1934, more informal settlements in the city were slated for redevelopment. Prospect Township was next. Originally one of many mine dumps scattered across early Johannesburg, the area of Prospect gradually developed into a small but significant settlement. Like other informal communities at the time, it was built from makeshift materials and inhabited by black workers who were drawn to the city during its rapid growth as a mining center. Located near the industrial heart of Johannesburg, Prospect formed part of a cluster of settlements that grew on the fringes of the city. But as the city expanded and new infrastructure projects took shape, Prospect Township was earmarked for demolition to make way for a railway goods yard. As a result, its residents were forcibly relocated to the newly established township of Orlando. And among them was SOFASONKE MPANZA.